It began with a slip of the tongue. But by the end of that October afternoon in Singapore, the Queen's mask had fractured. The serene public face that Camilla had spent 2 decades carefully crafting melted, exposing, for just a few moments, something far more raw: jealousy, fear, and rage. Queen Camilla, standing just feet away from her husband, King Charles III, and his sister Princess, and had just endured what insiders now describe as the first of 3 humiliations, each one chipping away at her sense of control, each one reinforcing the same truth she had fought so hard to bury. Diana's shadow was still very much alive. And worse, it was blooming. The tropical air hung warm and sweet, with the scent of orchids. Cameras flashed, umbrellas tilted, and diplomatic staff flanked the edges of the famed VIP orchid naming walkway, a corridor of glass-paneled orchid displays dedicated to visiting dignitaries. Past guests had included everyone from Barack Obama to Emperor Naruhito, but today, the stars were the British royals. It was meant to be a light, graceful stop on the monarchy's goodwill tour through Southeast Asia. But as Queen Camilla stepped into the orchid pavilion beside her husband, and the atmosphere shifted, a young Singaporean guide, nervous but enthusiastic, gestured proudly toward the floral trio near the entrance. Here we have 3 of our most cherished blooms, named after King Charles, Queen Diana, and Princess Camilla. A pause, a collective intake of breath, and the Queen froze. The silence was deafening, and his head snapped toward the guide with a sharp wince. Charles blinked slowly but said nothing. The aide's smile faltered, and Camilla, stone-faced, lips pressed tight, did not correct him. She didn't need to. Her eyes, dark with restrained fury, said everything. The guide, realizing his error, tried to recover. I meant Queen Camilla and Princess Diana, of course. But the damage was done. The unintended elevation of Diana to Queen and Camilla to Princess, in front of cameras, diplomats, and a garden full of rare orchids, wasn't just a misstep. To Camilla, it was a betrayal by fate itself. In a subtle but telling gesture, she turned her back slightly toward the Dendrobium Diana orchid and moved swiftly ahead, choosing to linger instead beside her own floral namesake. When staff invited the royal trio for a photo with all 3 orchid breeds, a celebration of British royal femininity, the host had said, Camilla declined. Twice, a veteran photographer later described her posture as a statue trying not to shatter. It might have passed as an awkward but forgettable moment, if it weren't for what came next. 2 nights later, at a private event hosted by the British Council Singapore at the Capital Kempinski Hotel, Princess N, known for her dry wit and absolute lack of filter, was asked about highlights on the trip during a cultural panel on UK-ASEAN diplomacy. With a casual chuckle and no script in hand, she recalled, "Well, the Botanic Gardens are always a joy. I think Charles has 3 orchids named after him now. Or is it 2? Camilla's got 1. And of course there's Diana's. Always steals the spotlight, doesn't she?" The room laughed. But somewhere in the dim back row, Queen Camilla's clenched jaw was unmistakable to those who knew her. Her private secretary, seated beside her, made a quick note. Something had changed. Upon returning to London, Camilla canceled 3 internal briefings and 1 scheduled public appearance at a hospital children's wing in Surrey, citing exhaustion. But senior aides whispered otherwise. One insider described her mood as combustible. Another said, she didn't speak for an entire hour on the flight home, not even to the king. That never happens. In private, Camilla reportedly expressed anger that had made light of a sensitive topic and accused royal aides of failing to protect her from public embarrassment. But the truth was simpler and more painful. The entire situation had unearthed an old insecurity, the unspoken reality that no matter how many titles she wore, Camilla would never replace Diana in the hearts of the public, nor escape being compared to her. And the comparisons weren't over. The second blow, far more personal, was coming. Just days after the orchid incident, William and Catherine appeared at a charity event at the Royal Marsden Hospital in London. They had expected a routine engagement, a feel-good moment for the cameras. But the host, an experienced broadcaster, ended with a curveball. There's been a great deal of chatter about a 4th baby for the Wales family. Any thoughts you'd like to share with us today? William smiled. He looked at Catherine, who gave the slightest nod. Then he said, "Well, my father always used a joke that 3 is sensible, but 4 is legacy. He used to say Charlotte could use a sister. It started as a joke, but we know now he meant it." Then, pausing briefly to meet the gaze of the cameras, William continued, "Catherine's doing very well. She's healthy. We're ready, and yes, our family is growing." A polite round of applause followed. But for one person watching the rebroadcast at Clarence House, the applause felt like a slap. The segment aired internationally within hours. Social media exploded, but it was the briefest moment, just seconds, that created a sensation. A lip reader analyzing behind-the-scenes footage caught Charlotte whispering excitedly to her mother, "If it's a girl, can we name her Diana?" The camera didn't catch Catherine's answer, but it didn't need to. By the next morning, newspapers were already speculating. "Wales' baby might be named Diana," screamed one headline. Another went further. "Charles's secret wish realized. A new Diana for a new generation?" Camilla's fury, according to staff, was volcanic. One aide described the Queen Consort as unreachable for an entire day. Another was seen hastily exiting her office in tears. And within 48 hours, Camilla made a move no one expected. When Queen Camilla returned to London after the Southeast Asia tour, royal insiders expected the palace to resume its predictable rhythm: diplomatic lunches, ceremonial meetings, curated appearances. Instead, something had shifted. Behind closed doors, the Queen Consort, still fuming over what she privately referred to as the Diana incident, set into motion a sequence of covert retaliations and internal signaling that made one thing perfectly clear. She was no longer going to smile through the pain. The trip to Singapore was supposed to showcase unity. It did the opposite. By October 26, 2025, just 5 days after the misnaming scandal at Singapore Botanic Gardens and Princess, and off-the-cuff remark about Diana's enduring spotlight, Camilla had effectively gone silent within Clarence House. Staff reported missed briefings. Communications aide were told she was resting, but emails suggested otherwise. Then came a private memo, distributed through back-channel channels to senior palace aides, especially those connected to press and event logistics. Sources close to the planning team for the upcoming Royal Christmas Speech 2025 say the memo requested that public references to Princess Diana be tactfully minimized in all royal press materials through the end of the year. The memo didn't carry Camilla's signature, but everyone knew where it came from. It was worded like a communication strategy, one aide admitted, but the subtext was ice cold. It was damage control, and it was personal. Meanwhile, King Charles, ever the mediator, attempted to maintain a veneer of harmony. He reportedly invited William and Catherine to join him and Camilla for a private dinner at Birkhall, the Scottish royal retreat near Balmoral, in early November. The dinner never happened. William declined politely, citing scheduling issues. Catherine was said to be resting, but within courtier circles, the message was received. The House of Wales had chosen distance. Camilla, frustrated at being stonewalled by the younger royals, turned her irritation toward Anne. According to 2 sources, she privately reprimanded her sister-in-law during a closed-door meeting at Clarence House, saying, "I won't be made a fool of in public, especially not over ghosts." And, predictably unmoved, is said to have responded, "Well, Camilla, the public decides who haunts them, not us." It was not the reconciliation Charles had hoped for. On November 9th, William and Catherine made an appearance on a BBC documentary special commemorating the 30th anniversary of Princess Diana's landmine campaign, a cause now carried forward by George and Charlotte through school initiatives. The program had been long in production, but the timing could not have been more unfortunate for Camilla. Toward the end of the broadcast, the host asked William a seemingly gentle, off-topic question. "There have been whispers about baby number 4. Anything you'd like to share?" What followed was a moment that would ripple across the monarchy. William smiled softly and replied, "Let's just say my father always believed for made a complete family. He'd joke that Charlotte deserved a sister. But I think it was more than a joke." Catherine added, "We're healthy, we're happy, and we're hopeful. That's all we'll say for now." But they said more than they realized. Within hours, social media and media headlines reignited rumors of a new royal baby, and for the first time, tied it directly to King Charles's private longing. King's wish for fourth Wales baby confirmed, one tabloid blared. Camilla reportedly watched the interview alone in her private drawing room. When a courier entered to deliver correspondence, she said nothing, just stared /D silently at the muted television. Later that day, she canceled her scheduled visit to a veterans center in Hampshire. The public reason: emergency schedule adjustments. But those close to her said she was visibly upset, repeatedly referencing the phrase public staging. Annie appeared at the cenotaph in London wearing a single white poppy, a break from the traditional red. She placed her wreath beside Prince William's with serene composure. In her hand was a white clutch bag with gold embroidery, later confirmed to contain a folded note written by Charlotte. When cameras zoomed in, photographers captured part of the note peeking out. The visible line read, "For baby Diana, with love from your big sister." The internet erupted, and so did Camilla. While Clarence House refused to comment, a former press aide confirmed the Queen was incandescent. One source described her reaction as a hurricane contained inside crystal walls. "She slammed a vase against a fireplace mantel," said one eyewitness. That hasn't happened in years. The Queen's press secretary immediately launched a review of all personal correspondence between the Wales family and select press outlets. The intent? To identify how a private note had been seen. But the truth was simpler. The name had never been secret. It had been whispered since Singapore. It had been growing in the public's imagination. Now it was confirmed. On November 13th, Camilla took a rare step. She demanded a private meeting with King Charles's most senior communications officer. In that room, according to internal leaks, she questioned whether too much of the institution's public image was now revolving around one side of the family. She was referencing the Waleses, and everyone knew it. She also asked whether it was possible to formally reassert protocol boundaries around baby naming rights, or whether it would be viewed as interference. The answer was diplomatic but clear. It would backfire catastrophically. "We can't tell the future king and queen what to name their child, ma'am," the advisor said, "especially not when the name already has public goodwill." Camilla left the meeting with her fists clenched. By November 15th, Camilla made one final move that stunned palace insiders. She withdrew from the upcoming joint Christmas broadcast, the one traditionally filmed with senior royals for BBC One. It was the first time a Queen Consort had refused to appear alongside her stepchildren in decades. The official reason? Scheduling differences. But behind palace walls, no one believed it. And as the day of the official name announcement loomed, Queen Camilla remained behind closed doors, silent, watching, waiting. But the storm around her was only just beginning. Charlotte's wish, Catherine's decision, and the public coronation of baby Diana. It wasn't supposed to be official. At least not yet. But what began as an innocent handwritten note from a big sister transformed into the most powerful royal name revealed in a generation. And unintentionally, a coronation of legacy that struck Queen Camilla like thunder. On the morning of November 11th, 2025, Remembrance Day in London, Princess Catherine stood before the cenotaph, composed, elegant, and deeply symbolic. She wore a single white poppy, a rare break from tradition that instantly drew headlines. But what truly captured attention wasn't her outfit. It was the envelope in her hand. Pale ivory with delicate gold trim. It peeked from beneath her clutch just enough to catch the cameras. Zoom lenses revealed part of the inscription, written in a child's rounded handwriting. "For baby Diana, with love from your big sister." By that evening, the photo had gone viral. The public didn't need a press release. They had their confirmation. It was Princess Charlotte's quiet wish that made history. According to a close friend of the family, Charlotte had been the first to suggest a name in a private bedtime conversation weeks earlier. She told her mother she wanted a sister, just like Granny Diana, someone to tell stories to and share secrets with. Catherine was moved. William, too. They had long discussed the name, hesitantly at first, worried it would be seen as provocative. But hearing it from Charlotte reframed everything. It wasn't a political decision. It was a daughter remembering the grandmother she never met, yet somehow already loved. And once Charlotte wrote the name into a note for her mother to carry. For courage, she said. There was no turning back. The name Diana began trending worldwide within hours. News anchors used terms like emotional vindication, a royal full circle, and a name reborn. Social media lit up with tributes, old photos, and side-by-side comparisons of Catherine and the late Princess of Wales, both seen as maternal figures of quiet strength. Even traditional monarchists, who had once bristled at Diana's rebellious streak, expressed warmth. The name feels earned. It feels like healing, wrote one Times columnist. Catherine has managed to do what no one else could, reintroduce Diana into the royal family without chaos. But inside Camilla's private quarters, the mood was far from celebratory. According to one courtier, Camilla refused to speak to anyone that entire evening, retreating to her sitting room with her dogs and a decanter of red wine. When Charles tried to broach the subject gently, she reportedly cut him off. So now we have a new Diana, just what the world needed. She didn't say another word for hours. The morning after the Remembrance Day shock, royal reporters crowded outside Kensington Palace, expecting an immediate clarification. They needed a statement. Was the note real? Was the name truly Diana? Was a fourth royal baby officially on the way? But instead of a press conference, the palace gave them silence. And that silence, carefully orchestrated, perfectly timed, became the most powerful statement of all. Because while Clarence House panicked behind the scenes, Kensington Palace had already shifted into a different gear. They weren't reacting. They were positioning. They were shaping a future that would belong not to scandal, but to legacy. And at the center of it all was Princess Catherine. On November 12, 2025, hundreds of journalists received an embargoed advisory from the Palace Communications Office. It was expected to contain guidance about the viral note. Instead, it was one sentence. The Prince and Princess of Wales have no further comment at this time. No denial, no clarification, no attempt to walk anything back. To the public, the message was almost tender, protective, even. To insiders, it was strategic genius. Catherine's gesture at the cenotaph had already won the world's sympathy. Issuing a sterile explanation would only dilute that emotional impact. Kensington Palace chose resonance over protocol. And in that void, narratives bloomed. Narratives Catherine never spoke. But everyone understood. A new Diana was coming. A new chapter for the monarchy was forming. And Catherine, quietly, gracefully, had become an architect. Within 24 hours, British morning programs turned into panel discussions about soft power, emotional monarchy, and the future of House Wales. Royal correspondents noted something that had been building for years, but had never been this visible. Catherine's influence had become more culturally powerful than any official title could define. Her appearances, rare but unforgettable, generated more coverage than most state visits. Her humanitarian initiatives, especially those involving early childhood development, were respected globally. Her public image was untouchable, her approval ratings consistently eclipsing every other royal. Even King Charles privately acknowledged, in a handwritten note seen by aides, Catherine holds the emotional crown of this family. But those words were salt to Camilla. By mid-afternoon on November 12th, tension inside Clarence House had reached a boiling point. While the king held meetings with foreign secretaries, Camilla summoned her closest communications team for what one attendee described as a reprimand disguised as a strategy session. Her voice stayed low but sharp. We cannot let the entire institution become a shrine to Diana again. One aide, attempting diplomacy, replied, "Ma'am, the public sees this as a tribute, not a replacement." Camilla cut them off. Tributes grow roots. Roots overshadow. And I will not be overshadowed. Her fear was not irrational. It was historical. For decades, Diana had remained the monarchy's eternal heartbeat, its rebellious saint, its wounded angel. And now, through her son and his wife, through Charlotte's note and the whisper of a fourth baby, Diana had re-entered royal narrative without permission. And Camilla felt the palace slipping through her fingertips. While Clarence House scrambled, Catherine appeared that same evening at the Royal Foundation's Early Years Summit, an event she had agreed to months earlier. She stepped onto the stage in a pearl-white tailored dress, calm, composed, radiant. Every camera in the room zoomed in. If she felt the pressure of the global speculation swirling around her, she didn't show it. Instead, she delivered a keynote that would be replayed across news networks for days. She spoke about childhood belonging, emotional resilience, and the importance of names that carry stories, hopes, and inherited courage. To the public, it was an inspiring speech. To royal watchers, it was a signal. To Camilla, it was a challenge. And Catherine didn't once mention the baby. She didn't need to. What happened next is what historians will likely record as a turning point in modern royalty. In less than 48 hours, Catherine had silenced the press without silencing public affection, elevated a family moment into a national emotional event, reframed the legacy of Diana into a healing narrative, not a dividing one, shifted royal gravity from titles to sentiment, from hierarchy to connection. Political analysts began calling it the Catherine model, a monarchic evolution built not on decrees or dominance, but on authenticity and emotional resonance. Even international media joined in. A French outlet wrote, "Catherine does not wield power, she becomes it." A Japanese newspaper put it more poetically, "Where Catherine walks, the monarchy breathes." This was everything Camilla feared. On November 13th, perhaps hoping to regain footing, Camilla made an unexpected decision. She announced a spontaneous visit to a women's literacy center in Bristol. The press call was hurried. The schedule was rushed. But something was off. Cameras caught her walking stiffly, smiling too tightly, gripping her clutch a little too hard. Her answers to reporters were clipped, and when one journalist asked, "Your Majesty, any thoughts on the Wales family news?" she blinked once, twice, then said, "I have nothing to say about notes." The clip went viral, not with admiration, but mockery. The internet called it the coldest moment of the year. Even some newspapers softened the blow, labeling it an avoidable misstep. What Camilla intended as a reassertion of royal authority became further evidence of her isolation. By the evening of November 13th, following her awkward Bristol appearance, internal polling commissioned by the palace showed a stark contrast. Catherine's approval rating, 87%. William's approval rating, 82%. Camilla's approval rating, 27% and dropping. It was the largest perception gap since Charles's coronation. As one senior aide whispered, "The monarchy has two queens now. One has the title, the other has the people." And Camilla knew exactly which one she was. By mid-November 2025, Buckingham Palace was no longer one united front. It had become a quiet battlefield of controlled silence, veiled warnings, and whispered narratives. No press conference had been called, no official letters exchanged. Yet everyone inside the royal orbit knew what was unfolding. A cold war of image, a clash not of thrones, but perception. And at the heart of it was Queen Camilla's unraveling containment strategy, triggered by what was now known in palace corridors as the triple humiliation. Singapore's orchid slip, Charlotte's note, and Catherine's speech. Camilla, once praised for her discipline, had begun a campaign to reassert influence behind the scenes. But in her attempt to regain footing, she unknowingly initiated the most volatile form of palace politics, the whisper war. On November 16th, a column appeared in the Telegraph under the byline of a royal correspondent long considered sympathetic to Queen Camilla. The piece, though presented as mere analysis, contained several pointed observations that naming a royal child after Diana might be perceived as emotionally manipulative, that royal children should not be weaponized for legacy restoration, and that some members of the monarchy prefer to heal quietly, not theatrically. No source was cited. No direct quote was given, but the implications were unmistakable, and insiders whispered. Camilla's fingerprints were all over it. The Waleses did not issue a rebuttal. Instead, Kensington Palace released a photograph on their official Instagram account, a serene, uncaptioned image of Princess Catherine in her garden with Charlotte and Louis, playing quietly beside a tree planted in memory of Diana. The message was clear. This was not theater. This was family. The Post broke engagement records within 24 hours. And with that single image, Catherine neutralized the narrative without uttering a word. Even palace staff admitted, in hushed tones, Camilla plays press. Catherine plays hearts. Still, Camilla wasn't finished. On November 18th, she convened what she believed would be a private briefing with 3 senior aides and a trusted external PR advisor at Clarence's house. The goal? To discuss rebalancing the emotional narrative heading into the Christmas season. What happened inside that room would remain confidential until the following day, because someone recorded it, and someone leaked it. The recording, obtained by the Sunday Mirror, was never aired in full, but multiple transcripts were authenticated. Among the most damaging lines attributed to Camilla, they're painting Diana into a saint again and using that baby to do it. And worse, it's all very convenient, isn't it? Catherine emerges glowing, and I'm the jealous old stepmother. It's medieval. The backlash was immediate, though the palace declined to comment on the authenticity. The absence of denial was taken as confirmation. Several prominent commentators came to Catherine's defense, while even traditionally conservative outlets began publishing op-eds questioning Camilla's tone, her legacy, and her judgment. Into this powder keg walked Princess Anne. On November 19th, at a speaking engagement in Edinburgh for the Royal Agricultural Society, and went off script. When asked by a young journalist about public division within the monarchy, Anne paused, and then said, quite plainly, there's no division where there's purpose. And I'd say Catherine's found hers, wouldn't you? The audience erupted in applause. The clip went viral within the hour. A single sentence, neutral on its face, devastating in context, and had just publicly affirmed what insiders had long suspected. The senior working royals had closed ranks around Catherine, and Camilla was no longer part of that inner circle. By now, Queen Camilla's inner circle had shrunk. Only a handful of longtime loyalists remained. The king, caught between loyalty and fatigue, chose avoidance. William and Catherine were silent, untouchable, and had clearly chosen her side. So Camilla played her last card, the Christmas broadcast. Behind the scenes, she lobbied to rewrite portions of the speech draft prepared jointly by the royal family. According to staff familiar with the draft, Camilla inserted a section about moving forward from the past and resisting the temptation to sanctify history at the expense of unity. It was subtle, but those who understood the war knew exactly what it meant. When the king reviewed the draft, he crossed it out with one line and a single stroke of his pen. He overruled his queen. That night, Camilla did not dine in the main room. She ate alone. By November 21st, the palace buzzed with tension. An announcement had been scheduled for the next day, an official message from Kensington Palace confirming the 4th pregnancy, and more crucially, the guiding name for the child. Everyone knew what was coming. Camilla, pacing in her private suite, made no public appearances that day. But according to an aide present in the room, she whispered just once, let them have their Diana. A statement not of surrender, but of exhaustion, of bitterness, of knowing she could no longer fight the tides of public memory, or the quiet strength of a woman who never raised her voice but had changed everything. On the morning of November 22nd, 2025, the official royal announcement went live. Short, elegant, unmistakable. The Prince and Princess of Wales are delighted to confirm they are expecting their 4th child. As with previous children, the family has chosen a guiding name of personal and historical significance. This name will serve as a symbol of hope and legacy as they prepare for the newest addition to their family. The name is Diana. The world didn't blink. It roared. Social media exploded. The BBC ran a 12-minute special titled Diana Reborn. Crowds gathered outside Kensington Palace. Bouquets and handwritten notes piled at the gates. The phrase Baby Diana trended globally for 16 consecutive hours. It wasn't just a name. It was a moment, a signal that the monarchy, bruised, evolved, modern, had finally embraced a memory of its most complicated icon. But in another corner of London, far from cheering crowds and press flashbulbs, Queen Camilla sat in silence. She had known it was coming. Still, when the name appeared on screen, something inside her dropped. According to a source inside Clarence's house, Camilla excused herself from her morning briefing without explanation. She walked alone through the private rose corridor Charles had built for her years earlier, the same corridor where, once upon a time, she believed she had finally escaped Diana's shadow. Now it felt colder. In the following hours, she canceled her only engagement that week, a literary award ceremony she had championed for years. The press cited fatigue. But the truth was simpler. There was nothing left to fight. That evening, William and Catherine appeared outside Kensington Palace with George, Charlotte, and Louis, smiling, waving, holding hands. The public welcomed them not just as heirs, but as symbols of monarchy renewed by memory, not restrained by it. Meanwhile, Princess had met with Commonwealth youth leaders in Canada, speaking warmly of generational continuity and women who shaped history. King Charles remained publicly neutral, but privately proud. Sources say he sent Catherine a handwritten note. "Your strength reminds me of her, in the best possible way." He signed it not as king, but simply Papa. And Queen Camilla? She remained off camera, unmentioned, unmissed. Late that night, Camilla was seen to the upper window of Clarence's house, seated alone with a single lamp burning behind her. No crown, no sash, just the quiet realization that history had chosen its queen, and it wasn't her.